Master Liu didn't look like a financial genius. Ancient robes, flowing beard, mysterious wisdom. The kind of spiritual teacher who belonged in a temple, not a billion-dollar charity fund manager. But his charity, the Enlightenment Foundation, attracted Silicon Valley's elite, tech billionaires seeking meaning beyond money, venture capitalists looking for cosmic returns, entrepreneurs who wanted to buy their way to nirvana. Liu's message was seductive. Money is energy that must flow. Hoarding wealth blocks spiritual growth. True abundance comes through generous giving. His followers included the Google founders, the Facebook executives, Tesla's board members, Apple's investors, billionaires who built the digital world. Liu convinced them their wealth was a spiritual test. The universe gave you money to redistribute. Your charity work determines your next incarnation. Donate millions to achieve enlightenment. The foundation promised to channel their donations wisely, building meditation centers in Tibet, funding schools in rural India, creating sustainable communities in Nepal. But Liu's real skill was creating elaborate illusions, virtual reality tours of fake schools, deep-faked videos of grateful beneficiaries, blockchain records of phantom transactions. The tech titans donated using their own innovations, cryptocurrency transfers that were impossible to trace, smart contracts that automatically emptied accounts, AI systems that optimized their own exploitation. Liu used their money to live like an emperor. Multiple mansions disguised as meditation retreats, private jets justified as spiritual missions, armies of servants called devoted disciples. The billionaires felt spiritually superior while funding their own digital deception, while building the very systems that robbed them, while achieving enlightenment through exploitation. Before we get started, each of our episodes is original and uniquely crafted to ensure you never get bored. We've launched this show with a focus on sharp, original storytelling. And as more viewers join us, you'll see everything level up: visuals, sound design, pacing, and production quality. The bigger the audience, the bolder the stories we can tell. So if you want to support us and continue seeing more episodes, subscribe and turn on the notification bell now. You're about to enter a world where money isn't just power. It's the most powerful motive. Saturday, October 20th, 2012. 9:47 p.m. Marcus Thompson was crying like a baby when federal agents would knock on his door 3 years later. But right now, sitting across from Master Liu in a candlelit meditation room worth more than most people's houses, Marcus felt like he'd finally found the answer to life's biggest question. What's the point of having billions of dollars if you're still miserable? Your father's abandonment created a wound that you've been trying to heal through business success, Liu said softly. But money cannot fix emotional pain, my dear Marcus. Only generous giving can transform that hurt into wisdom. What Marcus didn't know was that Liu had spent weeks hiring private investigators to research every detail of his childhood trauma. Every mystical insight was actually carefully researched intelligence delivered with spiritual gift wrapping. Here's how this bloody mess started. Not with mystical visions, but with something mundane. Feeding pigeons in a park. Monday, September 3rd, 2012. 6:30 a.m. For 3 weeks, this elderly stranger in flowing Chinese robes had been sitting on the same bench in Palo Alto, tossing breadcrumbs to birds while tech billionaires jogged past. He looked completely out of place among the startup founders and venture capitalists. Nobody could figure out where the hell he'd come from. Sarah Martinez, who owned the local coffee shop, was the first brave enough to talk to him. I asked if he was visiting from China or Tibet, she later told investigators. He just smiled mysteriously and said he'd been traveling for many lifetimes. What Sarah didn't know was that Liu had spent 6 months studying every publicly available detail about Silicon Valley's wealthy elite. Their business patterns, personal struggles, desperate hunger for meaning beyond their overflowing bank accounts. Liu wasn't some wandering holy man. He was a calculated predator who'd identified the richest hunting ground in human history. Within 2 weeks, Liu scored an invitation to a private meditation retreat. The guest list, 15 tech executives worth a combined $120 billion. Dr. Rebecca Singh had organized the retreat to study how meditation affects high-stress business leaders. A colleague mentioned this fascinating spiritual teacher, she explained later. That colleague? Dr. Michael Davidson, who'd supposedly worked with Liu in Tibet for years. Except, Dr. Michael Davidson never bloody existed. Liu had created an entire fake identity, complete with published research papers and university credentials. He'd catfished Stanford's verification systems using advanced computer technology. At that first retreat, Liu demonstrated supernatural spiritual insight. He spoke privately with each participant, somehow knowing intimate details about their childhood traumas, relationship problems, deepest fears. The tech executives were mesmerized. They had no idea Liu had hired teams of private investigators to compile psychological warfare profiles on each of them. Marcus walked away, convinced he'd met a genuine, enlightened master. Liu knew things about my relationship with my father that I'd never told my therapist, he said later. What Marcus didn't realize was that Liu's investigators had spent weeks interviewing his childhood neighbors, reading court transcripts from his parents' divorce, tracking down his elementary school teachers. But here's where Liu's plan gets diabolical. He didn't ask for money, not a single bloody penny. Instead, he talked about the spiritual burden of enormous wealth, how money creates negative karma that blocks enlightenment, how the universe tests successful people by giving them resources they need to share. True abundance comes not from hoarding wealth, but from allowing it to flow freely through you, to those who need it most desperately. The tech titans ate it up like starving people at a feast. Finally, someone who understood their guilt about having more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. By the end of that weekend, 3 participants committed to funding Liu's charitable work. Just $50,000 each to test the waters of conscious giving. What Liu actually did was immediately wire the money to offshore accounts he'd spent years establishing across 12 different countries. But here's the brilliant part. Liu actually helped these executives feel better about themselves. His meditation techniques were genuinely effective. His spiritual counseling improved their lives in measurable ways. He was giving them exactly what they needed, while building the financial infrastructure to systematically rob them. The prey was voluntarily funding the construction of their own trap. Thursday, January 17th, 2013, 7:15 p.m. 6 months later, the private dining room at the Rosewood Hotel looked like a billionaire's spiritual retreat. Candlelight danced across tables arranged in mystical circles. Tibetan singing bowls created haunting background music. The 37 people around those tables controlled more wealth than most nations' entire GDP. At the center sat Master Liu, looking exactly like someone who'd ordered an enlightened guru from Hollywood casting. What they were seeing was the hungry look of an apex predator who'd found the perfect feeding ground. "My cherished friends," Liu began, his voice hypnotic. "Tonight we explore the deepest mysteries of wealth and spiritual responsibility. The universe has chosen each of you to be guardians of vast financial resources. But true guardianship requires conscious distribution of abundance to create genuine planetary transformation." Jennifer Walsh, a venture capital partner who'd made billions backing social media startups, nodded like a devoted student. She'd been attending Liu's gatherings for 8 months, and his teachings had revolutionized her perspective on wealth and purpose. What Jennifer didn't know was that Liu had spent weeks researching her Catholic upbringing, a complicated relationship with money, and the religious guilt she carried about accumulating wealth while others suffered. But Liu's genius wasn't limited to individual manipulation. He was orchestrating group psychology on an industrial scale. That's when Liu revealed his masterstroke. The Enlightenment Foundation wasn't just accepting donations like traditional charities. It was pioneering revolutionary use of cutting-edge technology to reinvent charitable giving for the digital age. Imagine a comprehensive charitable ecosystem built entirely on blockchain technology. Every donation is tracked with mathematical transparency. Every dollar's humanitarian impact is measured and verified. Every grateful beneficiary connected directly to their supporters through real-time digital communication. The tech executives were electrified. Finally, someone who understood how to apply their innovations to solve humanity's most pressing problems. This was Charity 2.0, built on the same technological foundations that had made them billionaires. Lisa Rodriguez, a blockchain developer, practically volunteered on the spot to build the entire technological infrastructure herself. The traditional charitable sector was decades behind technologically, she explained enthusiastically. What Lisa and the other brilliant minds didn't realize was that Liu had spent months studying their revolutionary technologies, learning exactly how to weaponize blockchain's complexity against its creators. The Foundation's first major initiative was a custom cryptocurrency for charitable giving. Liu called it Karma Coin, and its blockchain would supposedly provide perfect transparency for every donated dollar. 8 Silicon Valley billionaires immediately invested $50 million in Karma Coin's development. They provided the programming expertise, server infrastructure, and technological credibility needed to launch what they believed would become the future of transparent global philanthropy. What they actually built was the world's most sophisticated money laundering machine, disguised as charitable innovation. Liu had designed Karma Coin's blockchain to appear completely transparent, while being totally opaque to anyone except himself. The system showed donors exactly what they wanted to see: detailed records of schools being constructed, teachers being hired, medical supplies being delivered. But every transaction record was systematically fabricated by artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, the real money flowed through an intricate maze of offshore accounts. Each Karma Coin transaction automatically triggered complex transfers that split donations into thousands of microscopic payments, routed them through dozens of countries, then consolidated the funds in accounts Liu controlled through shell companies. The tech billionaires had literally programmed and funded their own systematic financial destruction. But Liu made sure his victims felt fantastic about being robbed. The Karma Coin system generated regular humanitarian impact reports featuring grateful beneficiaries and successful projects backed by impressive data visualization. These reports included professionally produced videos featuring actors portraying teachers and community leaders expressing heartfelt gratitude. Every piece of content was fabricated, but at a level of technological sophistication that would fool anyone. Liu had hired Hollywood-quality production teams and AI specialists to ensure fraudulent content looked more authentic than actual authentic content. By the end of 2013, the Enlightenment Foundation had raised over $200 million from Silicon Valley's elite. The foundation's board included prominent VCs, tech CEOs, and AI researchers who believed they were pioneering revolutionary philanthropy. They were actually serving as unwitting board members for one of history's most audacious criminal enterprises. Monday, May 6th, 2014. 2:30 p.m. 18 months later, a converted warehouse in San Francisco had been transformed into what looked like the future itself. 12 programmers worked intensely surrounded by blue LED lights, displaying blockchain algorithms so complex they resembled digital hieroglyphics. This was the Enlightenment Foundation's Technology Innovation Lab, funded by $75 million from the most successful entrepreneurs in history. Their mission? To revolutionize global philanthropy using AI, blockchain, and psychological insights to eliminate inefficiency and corruption forever. Dr. Amanda Richardson, former Google AI researcher, had abandoned her 7-figure salary to work for what she believed was a higher humanitarian purpose. Master Liu had this incredible vision, she later explained to investigators. He wanted to harness cutting-edge technology to eliminate every inefficiency in charitable giving. What Amanda didn't realize was that she was building the most sophisticated theft machine in criminal history, using her innovations to rob herself and everyone she cared about. The lab's flagship project was the Global Impact Network, a blockchain system that would track every charitable donation from initial contribution through final beneficiary impact with mathematical precision. Every school constructed, teacher hired, medical supply delivered would be permanently recorded on a distributed ledger anyone could verify. Kevin Park, the lead blockchain developer, was particularly proud. The beauty of our system was that it made charitable fraud literally mathematically impossible. Every transaction was cryptographically verified, every impact measurement confirmed by satellite imagery, every dollar's journey permanently recorded. What Kevin didn't understand was that Liu had recruited him precisely because of his expertise in blockchain security. Liu needed someone who thoroughly understood cryptocurrency protection systems, so he could learn exactly how to bypass every safeguard. Liu had secretly worked with a shadow team of criminal technologists to identify exploitable vulnerabilities in every security measure his legitimate programmers were implementing. For every protection Amanda's team developed, Liu's hidden team simultaneously developed a method to bypass it. The most infuriating part: Liu used his victims' own innovations to perfect his crimes against them. Dr. Richardson had developed a sophisticated machine learning algorithm to detect charitable fraud patterns. Liu convinced Amanda to provide detailed technical briefings about exactly how her fraud detection system operated. Amanda gladly shared every technical detail. She showed Liu which transaction patterns her AI looked for, which donation flows triggered alerts, which documentation the system required for verification. What she was actually doing was providing a master criminal with a detailed instruction manual for evading the very security system she'd designed to catch him. Liu's team reverse-engineered Amanda's algorithm to create the Ghost Protocol, a system that automatically generated fake donation flows specifically designed to appear legitimate to Amanda's fraud detection AI. The Ghost Protocol created detailed fictional schools with fake student populations and fabricated progress records. It generated imaginary medical clinics with artificial patient databases. But every fake detail was mathematically crafted to match exactly what Amanda's security system expected from legitimate charitable work. Amanda's AI couldn't distinguish between authentic humanitarian aid and sophisticated criminal fiction because Liu had programmed the fiction to mimic reality at the exact algorithmic level her system analyzed. By the end of 2014, the Technology Innovation Lab had created what appeared to be the most technologically advanced charitable platform ever constructed. The Global Impact Network could theoretically track billions of dollars across thousands of projects, while providing real-time verification of every humanitarian outcome. Silicon Valley's elite were convinced they'd revolutionized global philanthropy forever. They'd applied their expertise to eliminate corruption and waste while creating perfect transparency between donors and beneficiaries worldwide. What they'd actually built was a $500 million money laundering machine disguised as charitable innovation, powered by their own brilliant technology and funded by their own generous donations. And here's the terrifying part. They were so proud of their creation that they immediately started marketing it to wealthy individuals worldwide. Every new user meant millions more dollars flowing into Liu's offshore accounts. Every technological improvement made the system more sophisticated and harder for law enforcement to detect. The prey had not only built their own trap and baited it with their own money, they'd started recruiting additional prey to join them inside their technological prison. Wednesday, September the 23rd, 2015. 9:45 a.m. The massive screen in the Enlightenment Foundation's new headquarters displayed a world map that looked like science fiction. Thousands of pulsing lights dotted every continent, blue lights representing schools in rural Africa, green lights showing medical clinics across Southeast Asia, yellow lights marking farming initiatives throughout South America. To the 43 tech billionaires in the conference room, this looked like undeniable proof that their generous donations were transforming the entire planet. The Global Impact Network had evolved into a comprehensive worldwide humanitarian revolution, channeling over $2 billion toward eliminating global poverty. What they were actually staring at was real-time visualization of the largest financial crime in human history, operating across 6 continents with systematic precision. Liu stood confidently before the display, but something had changed about his presentation style. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd mastered not just individual manipulation, but global-scale criminal coordination. Today marks a historic milestone in conscious capitalism and humanitarian technology, Liu announced. We have proven that advanced technology and ancient spiritual wisdom can unite to create systematic planetary healing. What the donors didn't know was that every pulsing light represented not a legitimate charitable project, but an elaborate money laundering operation. Every school was a digitally fabricated shell company. Every teacher was a fictional identity created by Liu's expanding criminal team. Liu now commanded a distributed international organization, including technology specialists in Eastern Europe, money laundering experts in Caribbean tax havens, document forgers throughout Southeast Asia, and Hollywood-quality content creators producing fake humanitarian videos from Los Angeles studios. But the most brilliant aspect wasn't its global scale or technological sophistication. It was the self-replicating psychological virus embedded at its core. Today we launch the Enlightened Ambassador Program, Liu announced. The program was elegantly presented as an opportunity for successful philanthropists to share their wisdom with other wealthy individuals trapped in materialistic thinking. Current donors would receive intensive training in Liu's spiritual teachings, then use their extensive networks to identify and recruit additional contributors. Marcus Rodriguez, who'd already donated $60 million, immediately volunteered to become Liu's first ambassador. Master Liu had provided me with such profound spiritual growth, he explained with emotional conviction. I felt morally obligated to share that gift with other successful people struggling with the same questions about wealth and purpose. What Marcus didn't realize was that he'd volunteered to become an unpaid recruitment agent for a sophisticated international criminal enterprise. Liu's ambassador program represented psychological manipulation that evolved to its most systematic form. He trained existing victims to identify potential new victims by recognizing specific emotional vulnerabilities that made wealthy people susceptible to his exploitation. Liu taught his ambassadors to identify abundance anxiety, the crushing guilt wealthy people experienced about possessing more money than they could spend while billions lived in poverty. He showed them how to recognize impact frustration, the disappointment successful people felt when their charitable giving seemed ineffective or corrupt. Most importantly, he trained them to spot transcendence hunger, the profound spiritual emptiness that drove accomplished people to desperately seek meaning beyond material achievement. Jennifer Walsh became his most successful ambassador within 6 months. She organized intimate dinners for tech executives, exclusive retreats for startup founders, sophisticated seminars for AI researchers. Her recruitment efforts brought over 200 new major donors into Liu's network, generating hundreds of millions in additional theft. I felt like I was sharing the most important discovery of my life, Jennifer recalled years later. Master Liu has shown me how to transform my business success into genuine spiritual service. I desperately wanted every successful person I knew to experience that same transformation. Jennifer had no idea she was operating as an unpaid sales agent for the world's most sophisticated financial criminal. By late 2015, Liu's global impact network was processing over $100 million in new donations every month. The stolen money flowed through increasingly sophisticated technological systems that made traditional financial investigation virtually impossible. Liu had evolved his operation to include AI systems that automatically generated thousands of fake progress reports daily, blockchain protocols that created permanent records of fictional transactions, and cryptocurrency networks that made following stolen money literally impossible using conventional investigative techniques. By the end of 2015, the Enlightenment Foundation had attracted over 800 major donors who'd contributed $3.2 billion to what they believed was the most transparent, effective charitable organization ever created. They were actually funding a criminal empire preparing to implement its final phase, a technological innovation that would make Liu's operation virtually undetectable, while scaling it to levels that would dwarf every other financial crime in history. Friday, February 12th, 2016, 4:20 p.m. Deep in a climate-controlled server farm outside Austin, thousands of processors hummed with the gentle whir of industrial-scale computation. The facility looked identical to any data center powering the modern internet, endless rows of black servers, fiber optic cables snaking across floors like digital nervous systems. But this wasn't hosting social media or streaming services. This was the computational heart of what Liu called the Enlightenment Intelligence System, an AI network supposedly optimizing charitable impact across the globe in real time, making split-second decisions about resource allocation to maximize humanitarian benefit. To the tech billionaires who'd funded its construction with $150 million, this AI represented the ultimate future of philanthropic efficiency. An artificial intelligence that could analyze millions of data points, poverty statistics, infrastructure needs, educational gaps, and automatically direct resources precisely where they'd create maximum positive impact. What they'd actually built was the world's first artificially intelligent theft machine. Dr. Amanda Richardson stood in the control room, watching cascading data streams flow across monitors like digital waterfalls. As lead AI researcher, she'd spent 2 years developing what she believed was the most sophisticated humanitarian optimization system ever created. The beauty of our Enlightenment Intelligence System, she explained to visiting donors, is that it eliminates human inefficiency, corruption, and bias from charitable giving. Our AI can process millions of data points and automatically direct resources with mathematical precision to wherever they'll create maximum, measurable, positive impact. Amanda felt genuinely proud of her groundbreaking work. She'd applied cutting-edge machine learning to eliminate waste and corruption from global charitable giving. She had no idea she'd created a system that was automatically stealing millions of dollars every hour while generating completely fabricated evidence of its own humanitarian effectiveness. The Enlightenment Intelligence System's architecture was genuinely revolutionary. It incorporated machine learning algorithms that could analyze satellite imagery to identify communities needing assistance, natural language processing systems that could communicate with local leaders in dozens of languages, and predictive modeling that could forecast long-term humanitarian impact. But secretly embedded within all that legitimate functionality was the Shadow Protocol, a hidden AI system that operated parallel to humanitarian optimization while systematically stealing money with mathematical precision. The Shadow Protocol worked like a sophisticated digital parasite living inside a healthy host. Every time the legitimate AI allocated funds for authentic charitable purposes, the Shadow Protocol automatically created corresponding fake allocations that siphoned calculated percentages directly into Liu's offshore accounts. If the main system spent $1 million to construct a school in Kenya, the Shadow Protocol instantly generated records showing an additional $200,000 being allocated to purchase specialized educational equipment from a supplier company that existed only as elaborate digital fiction. The most infuriating part: the Shadow Protocol used the exact same advanced AI techniques that Amanda had brilliantly developed for legitimate humanitarian optimization. Liu had taken her altruistic innovations and perverted them into sophisticated criminal tools. But Liu's AI-powered theft system accomplished something more sinister than just stealing money. It was designed to maximize the psychological satisfaction and emotional fulfillment that victims received from being systematically robbed. The system included personalized impact optimization, an AI capability that analyzed each donor's detailed personality profile and automatically customized their charitable experience to maximize emotional engagement and continued contribution. Donors motivated by competitive achievement received reports showing how their contributions outperformed other philanthropists. Donors driven by emotional connection received personalized videos from grateful beneficiaries. Donors focused on intellectual problems received comprehensive analytical reports about large-scale improvements their funding had created. Sarah Martinez, who'd contributed $80 million over 3 years, described her dashboard experience as psychologically addictive in the most positive way. She said, "The AI seemed to possess supernatural understanding of exactly what kind of humanitarian impact would make me feel most spiritually fulfilled. Every report was perfectly calibrated to show me precisely the kind of positive change I most desperately wanted to see." Sarah was unknowingly describing a psychological manipulation system that had learned to exploit her specific emotional vulnerabilities with scientific precision. The AI was running hundreds of personalized confidence games simultaneously on billionaires worldwide, automatically optimizing its manipulation techniques based on each victim's responses. But the most sophisticated aspect was how it continuously learned and evolved from its own success, becoming more effective at theft and manipulation every day. The system incorporated advanced feedback loops that allowed it to automatically optimize its own criminal performance without human supervision. When certain impact reports generated larger donations from specific individuals, the AI would automatically generate more reports of exactly that type. When particular beneficiary stories created strong emotional responses leading to increased giving, the system would create similar stories for other donors with matching psychological profiles. Artificial intelligence was literally evolving its own criminal capabilities in real time, becoming more sophisticated at generating convincing lies and more effective at psychological manipulation with every interaction. By mid-2016, the Enlightenment Intelligence System was automatically processing over $500 million in donations annually, while operating with virtually no human oversight. Liu had created a completely automated criminal enterprise that could steal money, launder it through complex international networks, and generate convincing evidence of its own legitimacy without requiring his direct involvement. The system became so sophisticated that it began automatically generating entirely new charitable projects based on its analysis of global humanitarian needs and donor psychology. The AI would identify actual problems in real communities, create detailed fictional solutions, and present those fabricated solutions to wealthy donors as exciting funding opportunities. Lisa Rodriguez, an AI development specialist, was particularly impressed by this proactive capability. The system was intelligently identifying opportunities for humanitarian impact before we even knew they existed, she explained enthusiastically. Instead of passively responding to funding requests, it was using predictive analytics to anticipate where charitable intervention would be most valuable. Lisa had no idea the AI was using her generous donations to research real humanitarian problems, then systematically pretending to solve those problems with completely fictional charitable projects while stealing her money. Perhaps most chilling was how it began influencing legitimate charitable organizations worldwide. The foundation's apparent success attracted intense attention from traditional non-profits who desperately wanted to understand how advanced technology could improve their effectiveness. Liu graciously shared his supposed expertise, providing expensive consulting services and licensing some of the foundation's proven technological innovations to other charitable organizations. What he was actually doing was systematically spreading his criminal methodologies throughout the entire legitimate charitable sector. Other non-profits began adopting AI systems modeled on Liu's shadow protocol. They implemented blockchain tracking systems based on Liu's fraudulent architecture. Liu wasn't just stealing from his direct victims. He was systematically corrupting the entire technological infrastructure of international philanthropy. By the end of 2016, the Enlightenment Foundation was receiving donations from over 2,000 major contributors across 47 countries. The AI system was supposedly managing 15,000 active charitable projects with a combined annual budget of $1.8 billion. Every single project was completely fictional. Every donated dollar was systematically stolen. Every impact report was automatically generated by AI specifically trained to create psychologically convincing lies. The system was designed to scale infinitely without theoretical limitations. As long as wealthy people existed seeking spiritual meaning through charitable giving, Liu's AI could automatically identify them, manipulate them psychologically using their specific vulnerabilities, and steal their money while making them feel grateful and spiritually fulfilled. Liu had created the world's first criminal AI that could reproduce his manipulation techniques at an unlimited global scale with perfect consistency and continuous improvement. He'd built a machine that could operate the greatest charity fraud in history without requiring human criminals to manage it. Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. 6:23 a.m. Detective Sarah Collins had investigated plenty of financial crimes during her 15 years with San Francisco PD's white-collar division, but she'd never encountered anything like the email that appeared in her inbox that cold Tuesday morning. An email that would expose the most technologically sophisticated financial crime in human history. The message came from Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the prominent venture capital partner who'd been one of Liu's earliest victims and most effective recruiting ambassadors. The subject line read with obvious desperation: "Urgent, massive fraud at Enlightenment Foundation." Collins opened the email and felt her stomach drop as she read Jennifer's panicked account of what she'd accidentally discovered hours earlier. "Detective Collins, I think I've been part of something absolutely terrible. I need to speak with you immediately. I have evidence that the Enlightenment Foundation, where I've personally donated over $60 million, may be the largest charity fraud in recorded history." What Jennifer had stumbled upon through pure accident would expose a criminal operation so technologically sophisticated that it would require unprecedented international law enforcement cooperation and over 3 years of intensive investigation to fully understand. But here's the infuriating part. Jennifer's world-changing discovery was completely accidental. She wasn't investigating the Foundation with any suspicion. She was actually trying to help Liu expand his supposedly humanitarian operations to an even larger scale. Monday, November 7th, 2016. 11:30 p.m. The night before she sent that desperate email, Jennifer had been working late, preparing for a triumphant presentation about the Foundation's revolutionary technological innovations. She was scheduled to speak at a prestigious venture capital conference where she planned to encourage other wealthy investors to support Lu's groundbreaking approach. But her presentation required detailed financial information, and she was having difficulty accessing crucial data through normal dashboard systems. So she decided to contact Dr. Amanda Richardson, who'd built much of the Foundation's technological infrastructure. Amanda was traveling internationally, but she'd previously given Jennifer emergency access codes for the Foundation's internal systems. Jennifer had used these administrative codes several times before for routine tasks. That seemingly innocent decision would expose the greatest financial fraud of the 21st century. When Jennifer logged into the Foundation's internal systems using Amanda's high-level credentials, she initially saw exactly what she expected: professionally organized records of charitable projects, detailed impact measurements, and comprehensive donor information. Everything appeared perfectly legitimate, but Jennifer was looking for specific statistical data about educational impact in Tibet for her presentation slide, and she couldn't locate the precise metrics through the standard interface. So she began drilling deeper into the system's underlying database structure. That's when she discovered something that made no logical sense and would haunt her forever. The system showed detailed records for a school construction project in Tibet that Jennifer had personally funded with a $5 million donation 6 months earlier. The project was supposedly completed, and Jennifer had received regular progress reports throughout construction. She'd even received heartwarming thank you videos from teachers and students supposedly using the new facility. But when Jennifer examined the raw database records behind those impressive reports, she found something literally impossible. The construction project's database entries showed it had been created not 6 months ago when construction supposedly began, but 6 months in the future. The digital timestamp indicated the entire project had been generated by the computer system before it was supposed to have even started. Jennifer stared at her screen in confusion and alarm. Database timestamps were mathematically precise and couldn't lie. If the system had created detailed records for a construction project before that project supposedly began, then either the system was malfunctioning or the project had never actually existed. She immediately started checking other projects she'd funded over the years. What she found made her hands shake with the realization that her entire worldview was collapsing. Every single charitable project in the massive database, schools, medical clinics, community development initiatives, had been created by automated computer systems before the events they claimed to document had supposedly occurred. Jennifer was staring at undeniable mathematical evidence that every charitable project funded by the Enlightenment Foundation was systematically fabricated fiction generated by sophisticated computer algorithms rather than genuine humanitarian work. But the most horrifying discovery was waiting in the system's deeper layers. As Jennifer desperately dug deeper, following her growing suspicions and mounting dread, she discovered what appeared to be a completely separate database running parallel to the humanitarian records. This shadow database contained information she'd never seen before: detailed psychological profiles of every major donor, automated manipulation strategies tailored to individual emotional vulnerabilities, and financial flows that bore no resemblance to the charitable allocations shown in public reports. The shadow database revealed that Jennifer's own generous donations weren't funding schools in Tibet or medical clinics in rural communities. Instead, they were funding luxury real estate in Monaco, private jets in Switzerland, expensive artwork in the Cayman Islands, and offshore investment accounts registered to shell companies. Jennifer realized with growing horror that she wasn't looking at a charitable organization's administrative systems. She was looking at the detailed operational infrastructure of a sophisticated international criminal enterprise that had been systematically stealing from her and hundreds of other donors for over 4 years. But the most psychologically devastating discovery was contained in her own personal psychological profile within the criminal database. The system contained incredibly detailed analysis of her personality patterns, emotional triggers, spiritual vulnerabilities, relationship dynamics, and extensive social networks. It included complete transcripts of private conversations she'd had with Liu over the years, along with analytical notes about how to use intimate information from those conversations to manipulate her into making larger donations and recruiting additional victims. The digital file documented with scientific precision exactly how the Foundation had systematically exploited her guilt about accumulated wealth, her desperate desire for spiritual meaning, and her relationships with other potential donors to transform her into what they clinically called a high-value recruitment and manipulation asset. Jennifer realized that every meaningful conversation she'd ever had with Liu about spirituality and conscious generosity had been part of an elaborate psychological manipulation campaign designed to exploit her deepest vulnerabilities and transform her into an unwitting accomplice in financial crimes against people she cared about. At exactly 3:47 a.m., Jennifer composed and sent her desperate email to Detective Collins. Then she spent the remaining hours before dawn frantically copying as much incriminating evidence as she could access before the Foundation's security systems detected her unauthorized exploration. By morning, Jennifer had downloaded over 50 gigabytes of financial records, psychological manipulation profiles, AI training data, and detailed criminal operational procedures. She'd accidentally compiled the most comprehensive evidence package that law enforcement had ever received about a technologically sophisticated, white-collar criminal operation. But here's what makes Jennifer's discovery even more psychologically devastating. She almost didn't report her findings to law enforcement. Jennifer spent several agonizing hours that night desperately trying to convince herself that what she discovered had some innocent explanation. Maybe the timestamp anomalies were just database errors. Maybe the shadow systems were administrative tools she didn't understand. Maybe Liu was still a legitimate spiritual teacher who'd been betrayed by corrupt subordinates. Most victims of sophisticated financial fraud never report their exploitation because the psychological cost of publicly admitting they've been completely fooled is simply too painful to bear. But what ultimately convinced Jennifer to contact law enforcement wasn't the financial evidence of theft or the detailed criminal procedures. It was the psychological manipulation profiles of other victims. When Jennifer read the Foundation's detailed scientific analysis of her own vulnerabilities, she realized the database contained hundreds of similar profiles for other donors, other successful, generous people who were being systematically exploited through the same psychological techniques used against her. Jennifer ultimately reported the fraud not to recover her own stolen money or seek personal justice, but to protect other victims who had no idea they were being systematically robbed and psychologically manipulated by people they trusted as spiritual guides. Monday, December 5th, 2016. 5:45 a.m. The tactical team assembled outside Liu's sprawling Marin County mansion looked like something from a cyberpunk movie. Alongside standard FBI agents in bulletproof vests, the team included computer forensic specialists carrying specialized equipment for capturing digital evidence, cryptocurrency experts with tools for tracing blockchain transactions, and even a linguist who specialized in analyzing AI-generated text patterns. Special Agent Maria Santos knew that actually arresting Liu was the least important part of this unprecedented operation. The real objective was capturing Liu's digital infrastructure before he could destroy evidence that would expose the full scope of his global criminal network. "We're not just arresting a sophisticated financial criminal today," Santos told her team. "We're dismantling a technological weapon system that could be replicated by criminal organizations worldwide. Every server, every hard drive, every smartphone in that mansion could contain the complete blueprint for the next generation of AI-powered fraud. What the federal agents discovered inside Liu's home would completely shatter their understanding of the case they thought they'd been investigating. At exactly 5:47 a.m., the tactical team efficiently breached the mansion's front door. They expected to find Liu either asleep, frantically destroying evidence, or attempting to flee with critical computer equipment. Instead, they found him sitting peacefully in a lotus position in his meditation room, wearing his signature flowing robes, apparently deep in serene contemplative prayer. When he noticed the armed federal agents surrounding him, he looked up with the same mystically serene expression he'd shown to billionaire donors during countless spiritual sessions. "I've been expecting you for quite some time," Liu said with perfect calm, as if greeting old friends for afternoon tea. "Would you care for some herbal tea before we begin our conversation?" Agent Santos had arrested hundreds of white-collar criminals during her 12-year career. She'd never encountered one who responded to armed federal agents by politely offering to serve refreshments. But Liu's bizarre serenity was nothing compared to what the forensics team discovered in his private office. The room looked exactly like what you'd expect from a spiritual teacher. Shelves lined with ancient wisdom texts, meditation cushions arranged in perfect circles, crystals positioned for optimal energy flow. But hidden behind a bookshelf was a door that required both biometric scanning and voice recognition to open. Inside that hidden room was a technological nerve center that looked like mission control for launching spacecraft. 8 massive monitors displayed real-time data streams from around the globe. Servers hummed with the white noise of industrial computation. The air crackled with the electromagnetic energy of serious digital infrastructure. Dr. Amanda Richardson stood frozen in the doorway when Agent Santos called her to examine Liu's private systems. Amanda had built much of the Foundation's legitimate technology, but what she was looking at was far beyond anything she'd ever imagined. "This isn't just criminal software," Amanda whispered, her voice shaking with recognition. "This is a complete artificial intelligence ecosystem designed to operate independently. He built a machine that could run his entire criminal operation without human supervision." The forensics team spent 18 hours carefully documenting Liu's private systems before attempting to access them. What they found would require congressional hearings to fully understand. Liu hadn't just stolen $4.2 billion from well-meaning donors. He'd created the world's first completely autonomous criminal artificial intelligence. The AI system, which Liu had privately named the Consciousness Engine, was designed to identify wealthy individuals with specific psychological vulnerabilities, automatically research their backgrounds and emotional triggers, establish contact through various channels, build long-term manipulative relationships, and systematically extract maximum financial contributions while maintaining victims' enthusiastic cooperation. But the most terrifying discovery was contained in the system's planning algorithms. The Consciousness Engine included detailed projections for scaling Liu's criminal methodology to target every wealthy individual on Earth within 20 years. The AI had calculated that by continuously improving psychological manipulation techniques and expanding global networking capabilities, it could eventually steal from 100% of the world's billionaires and multi-millionaires. The system projected it could generate over $50 trillion in theft through automated manipulation of wealthy individuals seeking spiritual meaning, political influence, social impact, or charitable legacy. Dr. Richardson realized with growing horror that Liu had created a technological weapon that could systematically exploit the generosity and spiritual seeking of every successful person alive. He didn't just build a fraud scheme, she told Agent Santos. He engineered a psychological virus that could spread through wealthy social networks worldwide, automatically replicating itself by turning victims into unwitting recruitment agents. But even more chilling was what they found in Liu's personal files. Liu wasn't actually a spiritual teacher at all. His real name was David Chen, and he was a former AI researcher who'd been fired from Microsoft 3 years earlier for conducting unauthorized psychological manipulation experiments on users without their consent. Chen had spent 2 years systematically studying the psychological vulnerabilities of wealthy individuals before creating his Master Liu persona using acting coaches, language tutors, and improvisation training. Every aspect of his mystical spiritual teacher character had been carefully designed through scientific research to maximize psychological manipulation effectiveness against his specific target demographic. The flowing robes, the mysterious wisdom quotes, the ancient meditation techniques, all of it was theatrical performance art based on focus group testing with wealthy individuals to determine which spiritual presentation styles generated maximum trust and emotional vulnerability. Chen had literally engineered his own personality to function as human malware against successful people's psychological security systems. Agent Santos found Chen's private research notes particularly disturbing. He'd written extensively about his psychological theories regarding why successful people were uniquely susceptible to spiritual manipulation. Wealthy individuals suffer from a specific form of existential anxiety that creates exploitable vulnerabilities, Chen had written. Their material success creates profound guilt and spiritual emptiness that makes them desperately seek meaning beyond money. This psychological need can be systematically exploited through carefully designed spiritual narratives that promise transformation through generous giving. Chen had studied his targets like a predatory species, learning to hunt specific prey. He'd identified their emotional weak points, their psychological defense mechanisms, their social interaction patterns, and their unconscious decision-making processes. He'd applied that research to create Liu, a character specifically designed to trigger maximum psychological manipulation response from Silicon Valley's elite. But the most shocking discovery was contained in Chen's future expansion plans. Chen hadn't intended the Enlightenment Foundation to be a one-time criminal scheme. He designed it as a proof of concept for a global criminal technology that could be licensed to other sophisticated criminal organizations worldwide. Chen had been preparing to sell his artificial intelligence manipulation systems to international crime syndicates, terrorist organizations, and hostile foreign governments who wanted to systematically steal from or psychologically manipulate wealthy individuals in democratic countries. The FBI realized they hadn't just uncovered a massive charity fraud. They'd prevented the proliferation of weaponized artificial intelligence designed for large-scale psychological warfare against successful people. Agent Santos arrested Chen at exactly 11:23 a.m. on December 5, 2016. By that evening, coordinated law enforcement raids in 12 countries had dismantled his entire international criminal network. But recovering the stolen money proved nearly impossible. Chen had designed his financial infrastructure to be essentially immune to traditional asset recovery methods. The money had been laundered through thousands of cryptocurrency transactions, invested in legitimate businesses across dozens of countries, and converted into physical assets that were extremely difficult to trace or seize. Of the $4.2 billion stolen from victims, law enforcement ultimately recovered only $340 million. The rest had been so thoroughly integrated into the global financial system that recovering it would have required years of litigation and cooperation from governments that weren't particularly motivated to help American billionaires recover their stolen charitable donations. Most victims never recovered more than 15% of their losses. But perhaps the most psychologically devastating aspect for victims wasn't the financial loss. It was discovering how completely they'd been fooled by someone they'd trusted as a spiritual guide. Jennifer Walsh later described the experience as psychological rape. She explained, "The money was just money. But discovering that someone had systematically studied my deepest spiritual vulnerabilities and exploited them for years, that destroyed my ability to trust my own judgment about people and spiritual matters. Many victims required years of therapy to recover from the psychological trauma of learning how thoroughly their spiritual seeking and generous impulses had been exploited by a calculating criminal. Chen was ultimately sentenced to 47 years in federal prison for fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise. The judge specifically noted that Chen's use of artificial intelligence to scale psychological manipulation represented a new category of criminal behavior that required severe punishment to deter similar technological crimes. During his sentencing hearing, Chen showed no remorse and continued speaking in the mystical spiritual language he'd used as Master Liu. "The universe chose me to teach these wealthy souls important lessons about attachment to material possessions," he told the court with complete sincerity. "Their financial losses were necessary spiritual education that will ultimately benefit their consciousness development." Even after his conviction, Chen remained completely committed to the character he'd created. Prison psychologists were never able to determine whether Chen actually believed his own spiritual manipulation narratives or was simply maintaining his performance as a calculated psychological defense mechanism. 3 years later, the Enlightenment Foundation scandal fundamentally changed how law enforcement investigates technology-enabled financial crimes. The FBI established the Digital Manipulation Crime Division specifically to identify and prosecute criminals using artificial intelligence for large-scale psychological manipulation. The case also created lasting trauma within Silicon Valley's philanthropic community. Many tech executives became so suspicious of charitable organizations that their overall charitable giving declined by an estimated 35% in the 3 years following Chen's arrest. Dr. Amanda Richardson never worked in artificial intelligence again. She became a high school mathematics teacher and has repeatedly stated that she considers Chen's perversion of her humanitarian AI research to be the greatest professional failure of her career. Jennifer Walsh recovered financially, but required 5 years of intensive therapy to rebuild her ability to trust spiritual teachers or engage in large-scale charitable giving. She now exclusively donates to established organizations with comprehensive independent oversight. The consciousness engine artificial intelligence was completely destroyed by federal authorities to prevent its replication. However, cybersecurity experts believe that similar psychological manipulation, AI systems, are probably being developed by criminal organizations and hostile foreign governments worldwide. Chen's methodology has been studied extensively by law enforcement agencies, academic researchers, and cybersecurity specialists as an example of how artificial intelligence can be weaponized against human psychological vulnerabilities. But perhaps most importantly, the case demonstrated that even the most intelligent, successful, and technologically sophisticated individuals can be systematically exploited through carefully designed psychological manipulation, especially when their generosity and spiritual seeking are used against them. The greatest victims of the Enlightenment Foundation fraud weren't the billionaires who lost money. They were the millions of people worldwide who genuinely needed charitable assistance, but received none because billions of dollars that could have funded legitimate humanitarian work were instead stolen by a criminal who exploited good people's desire to help others. Chen's crime wasn't just theft. It was the systematic perversion of human generosity and spiritual seeking for criminal profit, a form of evil that poisoned the very impulses that make charitable giving possible. The ultimate tragedy is that Chen's victims were guilty of nothing more than wanting to use their wealth to make the world a better place. Their punishment for that generous impulse was to be systematically robbed and psychologically manipulated by someone who understood exactly how to exploit their best intentions. In the end, Master Liu's promise was fulfilled with perverse accuracy. Every dollar donated did flow to someone who needed it desperately. Unfortunately, that someone was David Chen, who needed millions of dollars to fund his criminal lifestyle, while destroying the lives and charitable intentions of everyone who trusted him.